Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome learners to this course on architectural thesis. My name is Dr. Vishal Chettry and I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Architecture, Planning and Design at IIT BHU, Varanasi. So as we have covered the previous presentations on report writing, so today we will cover on the other aspects of report writing process. So now let us look into the content of the presentation. So the content of this particular presentation will include first the recap that was studied or covered in the previous presentation, then we will look into the methodology that was prepared on how to prepare the methodology and write the methodology section in the report. Then we also have to look into the design process that is covered and in the report writing process, what different tools are used for used in the design evaluation or design preparation stages, the rationale behind design choices, what should be the rationales and how to write that particular chapters. We will look into these aspects. Thereafter case study and site analysis chapters. So how are these chapters to be written in the report? We will understand the details about these things. Then articulating design development in report writing, presenting final design outcome, how you should present the final design outcome in your thesis report, that we will cover. Thereafter writing the conclusion and the justification chapter, that is the last chapter of your report. Then the tips for effective and clear communication, how you can enhance the readability of your report, that will cover. And then there will be conclusion and the content of the next presentation will be shared with you. So to give you an understanding of what different aspects of methodology has to be focused while writing the methodology section, let us start with the first important point, that is define how research is conducted. So the basic objective of the methodology chapter is to give an introduction or give an idea to the readers about how and what different methods have you used in this particular thesis to achieve the goal that you have set for yourself. So this chapter should clearly explain the approach, procedure, techniques used to conduct the research. It also acts as a roadmap guiding readers through design, data collection and analysis, which allows replication and understanding of the conclusion. So one reader or any interested student, if he or she goes through the report, then it should be very clearly understood by the reader that what are the steps that you have taken to reach the design stage. So all that has to be very clearly mentioned in your report. Then this chapter also validates the reliability and credibility, because these two are important pillars of the successful thesis completion. So to have reliability and credibility in your work, this chapter holds a immense prominence. So it demonstrates systematic and rigorous conduct of research. It shows how methods ensure accuracy, validity and reliability, explains how biases were minimized and ethical standards maintained, increasing the trustworthiness in the methods that you have used in your research. It connects the research objectives to appropriate methods. So what objectives have you framed for your thesis, and how have you achieved those objectives with the tools and techniques that you have used. So all these things have to be elaborated in detail, and as shown in the previous slides, I have shown you a flow chart on how to prepare the methodology chart. So that same idea has to be, or that same concept of preparing the methodology chart has to be used, and it has to be elaborated in writing, because when you will show the methodology in your sheet, it will have a very limited time that should be allotted to describe the either you will allot very less time to describe the methodology, because the importance of your thesis will be judged through the output that you have generated at the end. Also equally the process that you have followed. So the process as well as the output holds equal weightage in this case. So your process or the output will be understood by the examiner only if you are able to communicate the methodology adopted very clearly to the examiner, and same goes for the readers also. Then describing the design process, it is a step-by-step overview of the entire design workflow that you have adopted. It outlines each phase from initial concept through development to the final design. So you should show some initial works that you have prepared when you before arriving to the final outcome of your thesis. So what were those steps, or how was the process, or what was the process that you have adopted for your thesis has to be explained here in detail. This includes research, ideation, sketching, modeling, testing, and the refinement of your work. So all the rough work that you have done yourself before you arrived into the final output, that has to be shown through the sketches, or shown by adding photographs of those sketches or drawings in your report. It also should show the development from concept to completion. So demonstrate how ideas evolve into concrete solutions, highlight key milestones and decisions made throughout the process. Emphasizes the iterative nature and decision making. Shows that design is not linear process. So it is very true that when you start designing a structure, it is always not a linear process. That means that as we mentioned, that we will start with basic background study, then we will do case study, thereafter site analysis, and then we will come up with some concept in our mind, and then based on the case study and our understanding about the project, we will prepare the area calculation, and the same will all information be used to prepare the single line plan, and then double line plan, and then elevation section, site plan, site section, site details. All those seems to be a very linear process, but at times when you develop your floor plan, but when you go back to placing it on the site, or when you see that placing different blocks requires some amount of adjustment within the floor plan or within the elevation, so you have to again go back to the floor plan stage and then rectify the layout of spaces and the composition of different spaces within the floor plan. So this is why it is not a linear process in that sense, isn't it? It is a cyclic process, or if you take one step further, you may have to take 2 to 3 steps back and rectify things in your floor plan or in your elevation stage before you show the site elevation, or before you show the site section of the entire project. So this is why this process has to be documented, and the same has to be shown by adding relevant photographs in your design process explanation stages. Then what are different tools that we use in design? So it includes software tools, it includes physical models, digital tools, isn't it? So these all has to be highlighted properly in your methodology section. So somewhere you will also mention very clearly what different tools are you going to use in your thesis. So those has to be explained very clearly, and the use and the applications in different stages have to be explained very clearly, so that the reader or the examiner is very clear that in which stage what different tools are used for preparation of drawings or preparation of the design. Then the tools also include analytical and data collection instruments like surveys, site observation, environmental sensors, measuring temperature, light, wind or humidity. So these things, if you have done yourself for your data collection, so these all have to be explained in detail in your thesis report. Data analysis tools like Excel and SPSS, if you have used some kind of if you have done some kind of survey in your thesis, so the same information has to be shown in the data analysis stage. Then the rationale behind design choices, it includes the justification of selected methods and tools. So you have to also explain the justification behind using a particular method. For example, if you are designing an IT building for a particular company which involves a lot of IT work and all that. So if it is based in Bangalore, so because that building is going to be the primary user of that building will be the IT professional, it will not be the client directly, isn't it? So this is why you have to go and do some survey of the users and understand their requirements, their issues, what they have faced in previous building. So how you could rectify or how you could take care of these issues so that they don't repeat again in your design. So that has to be collected through surveys, because you may not be able to understand those perspective in detail because you have not been in that area or in that arena. So that is why surveys helps you in understanding the requirement of the user groups. Then the other discussion of alternatives, like mention the other possible methods and tools that can be considered, because the readers may be interested in exploring other methods and other mediums. So you can also mention these things, discuss their advantages and disadvantages and explain why the chosen option was preferred. So when you mention that out of all these 4-5 different methods, you have selected this particular design or you have selected this particular tool for your research work, so that gives more clarity on how you have achieved this final form in your design or this final layout in your design. So this is why rationale behind design choices is essential to be documented in your thesis report. So connection between the literature and precedents, reference related studies and established best practices that support your choices. So this has to be followed properly. Show how your decisions are grounded in existing knowledge and previous successful applications. Thereafter you will prepare the chapter for case study and site analysis chapter. So a sample is being shown here, how you can show the site analysis chapter. You have to exactly show the location of the site where the building is going to be designed or executed. So you have to show that particular area and write down all the details about the site and the climatic pattern and the other details pertaining to the site. So the primary context and background of the selected project and details insight into the architectural design, challenges faced and solutions that are going to be implemented here. Include the research methods used to gather the information. So the method that you have adopted for your case study, you have to highlight that and highlight key findings, design innovations and lessons learned from the case study. So you have to compare the case studies. If you have done at least 4 or 5 case studies for your project, so try to add a comparative chart of your of all the case studies. It may be offline, it may be online case studies, and then you try to see as per the parameters. So first and foremost thing is, before you show the case study detail, you have to also mention the criteria that you have used to select the particular case study, because with respect to your project you may not get the exact building as a case study. For example, if someone is designing a building which is going to come up in Mars, so for that kind of building typology you may not get a specific case study related to that. So you have to select similar case studies in that context. So you may go and visit planetariums and all those buildings, or some kind of prototypes that are developed in ISRO or like similar organization where they have done some research work related to that, and then try to gather the requirements, then the area, how the area requirements are formed in those cases. So likewise all the details about the projects has to be documented and gathered. Then we also document the site analysis. So examine the environmental factors such as climate, topography, vegetation and the natural features that are present on the site. So document that, whatever photographs you have related to site, use those to explain the features of the site. Analyze social, environmental and cultural factors pertaining to site. So all these details related to your site analysis has to be there in your report in detail. Then next is to articulate the design development. So in this the process that has been adopted to get the final output in your design. So you will show that in a stage wise images. So as shown here in the in this particular image, you will get an idea on how to articulate the design development. So use text with visuals. So whatever images you have, try to give a description to those images so that it is very clear to understand what you want to portray through the image. Then highlight design challenges and solutions, identify key problems encountered during the design and explain how they were creatively addressed to improve the project. So this is very important because all the challenges and all the problems that you have encountered has to be documented in your report, so that someone who would like to venture into similar project is aware of what challenges one has to focus and what challenges one will get when the person will proceed into this type of project. So this is very important in that sense. It demonstrates the integration of site analysis and objectives. So how the inferences from your site analysis and inferences from your case studies are able to help you meet the objectives of your design. So that is very clearly like you will understand about these things in the process to articulate the design development. Presenting final design outcome. So at the end you will present the final design outcome of your thesis report. So in this you have to summarize the final design concept and feature. So this is important because it provides an overview of the key idea, form and defining elements of the design. So the entire design has to be explained. The previous stage that are present before you arrive into the final stage has to be documented and has to be presented in detail. You have to justify the choices based on research and analysis. So whatever form or what different shading devices have you used, what is the material that you have used. So all these decisions has to be justified through some research that you have done before you have finalized that you will use this kind of it may be related to the color of the building also. So to decide on which color or which paint that building will have, so you may have a proper justification to these aspects also, even to the material that is going to be used. For example, if you are designing a building in northeastern states, so probably there you will get lot of natural materials, building materials, bamboo, timber. So you may use these materials in your project to showcase the use of locally available material. So all these informations and all these data are to be supported from your literature review. So this is how literature review helps you in justifying the design decisions, and then there is always a justification to the work that you are doing. So without justification, if you complete your thesis, then it will always be a struggle at the stages where you will be questioned about the decision. So you won't have any answers to those questions. So when you do your literature review properly, you will get an you will have proper answer to all the design stages that you will go through. So this is why literature review is very important in this case. So use visuals, renderings, plan, section to present the design through your drawings, and then it also increases the clarity and the impact of your work. So visuals is as an architecture student, you know, you are trained in preparing the visuals for the text, isn't it? So we always give weightage to the visuals, because through visual it is very easy to communicate your idea, but when you write the same idea in terms of word, it may be perceived in different ways by the reader or by the examiner. So that is what, to avoid, you can have a clear photograph or you can have a clear sketch which explains what is your vision, what is your idea behind the project. So this is why visuals are very important element in architectural design. You should also reflect on how design meets aim and address the site context. So how the design, that is the final outcome of your thesis, meets the aim and it is able to achieve the aim that you have set for your project. So this all is actually shown through the final integration between the final design and the research aim or objectives that you have framed for your thesis. Okay, and then address the site context. So the context of the site, example like I have given before, if the building is in northeastern region, the use of locally available materials has to be justified in that way. Similarly, if you are building structures or designing structures in somewhere in coastal area of Karnataka or in Goa, so you will have a locally available material over there. So try to use those materials like laterite blocks and the roofing tiles that is very common in that region, isn't it? So this is where the availability of material, the understanding of site context helps you in taking appropriate design decisions in your thesis. Then the final sheet final part of your report is your writing the conclusion section. So you have to summarize the main findings of the design or research, highlight how the objectives were achieved and what key outcomes were derived. Then you also have to justify the design decisions behind your behind the final outcome of your thesis. So you have to explain the reasoning behind all the design decisions over there. Then also you should be able to give a clarity and add the relevance of the project. So highlight how the final work addresses the identified problem, responds to contextual needs and contributes to the field of study or design. So this is also very important, because the conclusion chapter should provide all these three information about the design project. It should conclude, it should summarize the main finding from your research as well as from the design. How does this design is able to justify the aim and objectives of the project. So this is very important in that case. Also the conclusion chapter clarifies and gives relevance to the work that you have done. It adds some value that how you have achieved the result that corresponds to the aim or objectives of your thesis project. So whether it is linked or it is slightly you are not able to meet the design objectives, all that will be judged after reading the discussion this conclusion section of your report. So this is why conclusion chapter is very important. It concludes the entire process behind the thesis project. Then let us now look into the tips for clear communication. So you have to be concise and focused, use a simple and precise language, link back to the main purpose. So whatever is your aim and objective that you have set for your project, so try to link that with the design decision. So summarize, don't introduce new information. So only wrap up what has been discussed, no new points. So the conclusion chapter or the last few chapters should not bring any new information. It should conclude or discuss the final outcome that you have achieved through a thesis project. Use logical flow and coherence. Ensure that ideas follow a smooth and clear sequence. Highlight significance and implications of your project and with a strong closing statement. leave the reader with a memorable final impression or call to action. So this is why it is very important, and your end chapter should have all these important aspects that are highlighted here for better clarity in your thesis report. So to conclude the presentation, it is very important that you write your methodology section in detail, so that it clearly describes the design process, tools used and rationale behind the choices to provide transparency and replicability, so that the same process, if someone else adopts or adapts as per the situation, he or she will be able to lead a similar result at the end. So that it is very clear that what results are we expected are expected at the end if one follows the same method. So case study and site analysis present detailed context, environmental, social and cultural factors, and link them to the design decision. So the decision behind a particular form, a particular way of connectivity between the spaces, the layout of the floor plan, so all this is actually dependent on the case study and site analysis. So as per the culture of that place, as per the tradition, as per the context, environmental factor, with this all information helps you in shaping the thesis project. So this is why case study and site analysis has to be done in detail, so that you won't end up in doing the same or similar work that is seen earlier also. So as already mentioned, each project or each site has its own characteristics. So try to imbibe those characteristics in your thesis project, so that there is some uniqueness in your design decision. And the information from case study, because the more case study you do, the different ideas you are able to grasp for the project. So you try to use those ideas and the information from your site in your project, so that there is some uniqueness in your design decision. Then articulate the design development, that means to communicate design evolution through text, sketches and diagrams while highlighting the challenges and solutions. This is very a good way to proceed in the report writing process. Presenting the final design outcome, summarize and justify the final design using visuals, that means showcase all the drawings that you have prepared for a thesis, right from your concept to the site plan, then floor plan, and then the other drawings like elevation sections or site elevation, site sections and other details. Then you conclude with clarity and justification. Provide a concise summary of findings and logical evidence based reasons for design decisions. So in your last chapter, that is your conclusion chapter, you have to highlight these important aspects of your thesis report, so that it connects reader well about the deliverables or about the final objectives of your thesis report. Then let us now look into the content of what is there in our next presentation. So we'll focus on the importance of documentation in strengthening the thesis, the use of conceptual diagrams to convey ideas, explain the design iteration and processes, systematic detailing of the design process, organizing supporting content, how we will do that, apply in-text citation techniques correctly, prepare a proper bibliography chapter, integrating visuals with a proper referencing, how it is to be done, and learning best practices for clear documentation. So all these different sections will be covered in our next presentation. These are some resources that you can refer for better understanding of your thesis, report writing process, and overall on the thesis project. So with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation, and thank you for your patience listening.